Hey everybody, let's take a look at the results of the Heritage October 2024 Christine Farrell Complete DC Collection Auction. It just ended last week, last Friday, as of the recording of this, on October 30th, 2024. And the whole auction realized $5.26 million, which, considering how many other books are in this collection, is just staggering. It's a staggering number. So let's take a look at. I remember when the record for a heritage signature auction, like a signature auction with 1,000 lots, was 5 million, and now a selection of an individual collector's books make $5.26 million. Crazy. Okay, so let's get started. First, we're going to look at New Adventure Comics number 27. Mile High Pedigree, CGC 96. What I said in the preview, I said this book is going to be really interesting to watch, as it represents a truly unique opportunity to own a high-grade copy of a very difficult book. There are only 12 copies in the census. It got $168,000. Any way you slice it, that's a crazy result. It's a very cool book from the world's greatest pedigree, so it's not like this result came out of nowhere, but it's still a big number. It was the third highest lot, the third most expensive book in the auction, and ahead of like a bunch of bigger, like kind of name brand books, including Keys, as we'll see. And as I record this, I haven't done the research, but I think that this is, and it depends on how you define pre-hero, because I think the cover date on this book is the same month as Action 1, but I think that this is the most money for a pre-hero DC ever, because the biggest sale I know of for a Detective 1 is $150,000. That was a long time ago, by the way, but I haven't really done the research, and it's kind of weird, and I'd have to define it, but whatever. It's a significant result, and I was really pleased to see this, because it's just esoteric in a way, but then not. So it's like one of those collector books, and it just like went gangbusters. Whoever bought this has got props from me. So, okay, so now let's look at New Adventure Comics number 17, Mile High Pedigree, CGC 9.4. This isn't as significant. It doesn't have the Action 1 ad. The cover isn't as good, but it's still sold for $66,000, which is crazy. There's a lot of like fancy books, fancy Marvels and DCs from the Silver Age that would never sniff at $66,000. And this book that has like no discernible characteristics outside of some very esoteric hobby things is getting $66,000 is great. So again, whoever bought this, thumbs up on the purchase. Okay, so now we're looking at the trifecta of New Adventure Comics number 28, CGC 9.4, New Adventure Comics 25, CGC 9.0, and the 23, CGC 8.5. I did those in the wrong order. Sorry. There's the 8.5. So we got 66,000 for the 28, 84,000 for the 25, and 15,600 for the 23. They generated some crazy results, but it's interesting, the 25, how well the 25 did. $84,000. That's a great cover, though, I have to say. It's a very dramatic cover. So, but they're unique books. There's not a lot of them in any grade around, and these are the Mile High copies. And again, somebody is got cornering the market on pre-hero DC magic in this auction. So, speaking of which, my goodness, I love this one. I've been talking about how much I like the pre-action DCs in this auction already, and I've talked about kind of over the life of the channel how much I've been enjoying the pre-Batman detectives. And these, they just blew the doors off in this auction. This one sold for $78,000 and is a magnificent book. Okay, so now we're getting out of like kind of the more esoteric area, which are still great books. These are marquee books. Detective Comics is a marquee title, but Detective 10 isn't Detective 27. Whereas Detective 38, First Robin, in 6.5, which is a really nice condition copy of this book. Yeah, so we're getting into more of the name brand books. Although we have one more oddball coming up. Anyway, I did really pretty well with my speculation on this book. In the preview, I said, what is this now? A $75,000 book? The Allentown copy, a 9.4, sold for $107,550 15 years ago. I think someone did pretty well with that one. Somebody certainly did well with the Allentown copy, because this book, which I predicted was like kind of worth $75,000, sold for $72,000. So not too bad. And as I said, we had one more kind of esoteric book. Double Action Comics number 2, CGC 7.0. This sold for $132,000. The 9.0 sold in a pair, right, for like 90 or whatever. I don't remember off the top of my head. But it wasn't $132,000. So the 9.2 has got to be worth a gajillion dollars now. Such a weird kind of unicorn book, and just, I don't know, a crazy result. So, Green Lantern number 1, CGC 7.5. This feels like a good buy to me. 5.5 sold for around $15,000, so $48,000 for a beautiful 7.5 seems like a pretty good price. I wish I had it. It's a really nice looking book. Okay, we are continuing with some of the name brand stuff. Here we go. More Fun 52. CGC Fine 6.0. This book got exactly half of what an 8.5 got in 2022, which feels like this book got a good result. Considering, 2022, maybe there's a little shine off of the market or certain corners of the market. Getting half of that, getting $132,000 when the 8.5 sold for $264,000 seems like, this book was kind of above where it should be based on that 8.5 2 years ago. So, and even if prices have like held on More Fun Comics, half is a good price for a fine copy versus a VF Plus. So, okay, so showcase number 17, Adventures on Other Worlds. First Adam Strange. This sold for $16,800, so $16,800. And I wonder what the 9.2, which I mentioned in a short, the 9.2 coming up for auction in November at Heritage, will sell for. That auction is live now. I'm going to have to try and squeeze in a preview of that auction this week. I have this to finish. I have part 2 of the World Record comic book progression that I want to ship because I have the script written. And I really have to talk about that Heritage signature auction. So it might be a busy time over the channel over the next couple of weeks. Anyway, that book is up for auction right now, and it's just got to be like a $50,000 book right now, right? I mean, I don't know how big the actual fan base for Adam Strange is, but, there's a significance to the showcase run, and there's a significance to these, 1950s DCs, and scarcity that just makes them so appealing to collectors. I mean, this is 3+ years before Fantastic Four number 1. It's 4 years before Incredible Hulk number 1. Incredible Hulk number 1, for Marvel collectors, seems like, oh, that's the craziest book in the world. And it's like, well, there's a 9.4, there's a 9.2, there's 2 9.0s. This is the highest grade copy of this book. The only other copy above 9, there's 1 9.0. So, I don't know. We'll see. Got to be $50,000 though. Wonder Comics number 1. They call it a lawsuit copy. I don't know what that actually means, or court copy. Because there was a book that was a court copy that was clearly stamped as evidence. This was involved in a lawsuit. I don't know what they actually mean by that. But anyway, CGC Apparent 6.0. I just hope this book found a good home for $15,600 because it's such a collector's book and a nice collector's copy, right? Because you appreciate it. It looks good. It won't set you back, whatever, $100,000. High grade copy would set you back. So. Okay, All-Star Comics number 1. All-Star Comics number 1, Carson City Pedigree, 9.0 Off-White. This result seems ridiculous. A lot of books that were in this auction did really well. I started off enthusing early, and I don't see this result. A 9.0 of this book sold for $9,200 in 2002. 22 years ago, this sold for $18,000. If you look at any trajectory of books from 2002, Golden Age keys or semi-keys from 2002 to now, that's crazy. It only doubled over 22 years with all that's happened in the hobby. A non-pedigree 9 sold for $17,200 in December of 2016. So this should have been like a $25,000 to $30,000 book. I would think. I didn't predict what it would sell for, but this seems like such a ridiculous result. I mean, I know it's not the most exciting book. There's obviously other copies of All Star Comics that are more exciting, but this is a DC #1 from 1940 from a pedigree. Again, not church, but still, I don't know. Hopefully this found a good home and isn't going to be like flipped in 2025. Okay, speaking of Superman #1, CGC 8.0, moderate A3. So, $81,000? This seems very cheap to me. I mean, it can be tough to value restored books, but another moderate restored book, professional versus this one with amateur, but still, sold for $168,000 in 2023. $81,000 for this book seems crazy. And again, I'm hoping this one found a good home. I'm hoping like somebody like messages me on the forums and says, it was me, I got it. My top bid was $100,000 and I got it for, whatever. I'd love to see that. So, and again, I wish it was me because I've never owned a Superman 1 and I would love to. So, somebody get me a time machine. Okay. We're nearing the end here. Superman #2, CGC 6.0. This book sold for half of what the last 6.0 sold for. Now that was clearly an outlier if you look at GPA, which I didn't add a chart for, but I looked at GPA and that 6.0 is kind of a crazy outlier. But this is sold for $18,000. That's half of what the last 6.0 sold for. Now there are situations where that means that a major buyer for a book is off the table and the competition is less when another copy comes up for sale. But come on, this is Superman 2. I don't know. Other 6.5s and 6.0s are clearly $20,000 books, and this couldn't even get that. So interesting, the pre-hero stuff, the like not name brand stuff, except that it's church, all did really well in my mind. And then some of these books didn't do as well. I wonder, is it because this auction was, kind of less well publicized, more focused on kind of the collector angle of it, right? Because there were so many esoteric books that got us excited as like the deep center of the hobby, the nerdiest part of nerddom. Because we didn't talk about like the Superman 1 we talked about the church books. We talked about like some of these things that we had never even known about that she had, like, pedigree books that she bought 30 years ago or 40 years ago that like blew our minds, and we didn't really pay attention to these. So I wonder if there's a little bit of under the radar. I don't know. I can't explain it because it's not often that a Superman #1 doesn't do well. A Superman #2 doesn't do well. So I don't know. I can't explain it. I'm just speculating. But again, you're kind of here because I do speculation. So I'm not going to apologize. Let's finish off with one. I barely talked about it in the preview because, again, I was so focused on the new adventure, blah, blah, Detective 10. Oh, my God. I got so excited for all those things that I didn't focus on the top book in the auction, really. I mean, I talked about it, but... So Action Comics #1 trimmed apparent CGC apparent 6.0. This to as a kind of a palate cleanser of those after those Supermans. This looks like a good result to me. I've talked about it before. We've now got restored comics selling for more or near what the record price was for a comic as recently as 2010. Right? So for a while it was $350,000. And now we regularly, because this is the second time in like 2 months, we've had a restored copy of Action 1 sell for nearly $350,000. So this is a good result, and things have really changed over the last 14 years. There we go. And with that, we're done. There was so much good material in this auction. Her books, they're still being sold in the weeklies, and I'm wondering if there might be another auction focused on her books since, there's not a lot of, there was only the showcase. It was just a handful of showcases. Just not everything has been, everything that's valuable that we know is like a top 10 or 20 book in the Silver Age or Golden Age has been, seen. So, it'll be interesting to see if there's another focused auction of her books coming up, maybe in the spring. Um, you know, we'll see. I mean, it's just, we're going to have to keep our eyes open and see what the totality of her collection looks like when it's all been dispersed back into the hobby. I mean, obviously they can't drop everything at once, right? They weren't going to do whatever the number was, they'd have to do a month-long auction to sell everything all at once. So that may be it. They're going to bookend this with part 2 in 6 months or a year or something like that, and disperse the big keys that way. But regardless, this one was really fun to watch and talk about, both here and on the forum. So thanks for, being along for the ride for this one. And I'll be back, maybe this week, certainly next week with, 1 or 2 new videos. And so if you haven't, please like, subscribe, share with your friends, bell icon, notifications, all that good stuff. It all helps build the channel and keeps me coming back to do more. So let's continue this virtuous cycle. Thanks.